What would ghosts do if you stole their most valuable object? Can the dead interact with physical things? And do dreams go deeper than just dreams? Today we test the believability of the Bloody Shadow.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
Where we dive into the unknown and the unusual.
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
Let me tell you, Tyler. Let
You
me
tell
tell
me.
you. I was singing Ed Sheeran on the way in today
Yeah.
for two reasons.
For those that don't know, that's a common practice, going back to when we were in a band
Yes.
of Charlie's.
It helps you warm up your vocals
Yeah.
because I'm going to be doing a lot of talking today.
Talking.
And also because I just love Ed Sheeran.
Okay.
I do. I'm going to put that on wax right now.
That's one of your next posts you can do, is you singing.
No.
I always did Plush by Stone Temple Pilots, and I
Yeah.
would do a song by like Cartel.
I did.
Like, honestly.
I did. What did I? I did an Ed Sheeran song. I think it was probably A-Team. And then I did somebody else. I can't remember what it was, though.
So, by the way, I hope you had a chance to check out our interview with Lindsay Cummins from Scared to Death podcast. It's a lot of fun. She's awesome. She's a hero of Charlie's.
It was awesome. You don't often get to meet people that you look up to. It's really cool. And I said in the interview, but we were from the same area. Like we grew up in the same
With every
area.
interview, apparently, we talk to somehow related to Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah. But patrons got to check it out first, and that's just one of the couple benefits of being a patron of Believing the Bizarre. Tons of bonus content that comes out every single week, every single month.
Yeah.
We're recording actually 2 things later tonight with producer Ben for Patreon.
And regular drops a little bit earlier typically.
So that's there for you. But you can listen to the interview now wherever you listen to podcasts. We enjoyed it, and especially if you like Scared to Death, like Charlie and myself, I think you will enjoy it.
So today's episode is one of our favorite things. We did not expect this, but it's here now.
Yeah.
And it's like you didn't expect a baby to come, but it came, and now you're like, I love this.
That's how I think of listener submissions.
Yes. And we've got 4 listener submissions today.
That is a lot of little, hungry, pooping, crying listener submissions.
I didn't know they were coming, but they're angels from above. Let's get into the episode. So this first story comes from Lindsay. It's just in the head. No, it's not right at all. It's just on my mind. So this first story comes from Sydney. Same ending, Val. From Idaho.
Okay, that's real.
Yeah, Rexburg.
She want us to know that?
She didn't say not to.
Okay.
And it takes place from April 2021 to November 2021.
Oh, so this is like 6 months.
So it's like 2 stories, 2 bursts.
So really, it's like they got 5 listener submissions. You know what I mean?
A little
like
bit,
bonus,
kind of, yeah.
All right, I can roll with that.
So she said, quote, I am a very religious person, and I don't take this kind of thing lightly. She said, I believe that you can't have this experience unless you or someone you live with invites it in. I feel like the spirits I had encounters with couldn't even be considered spirits, more like unborn evil entities. She said, I finished my first semester at BYUI in April 2021. I was moving to the apartment across the hall so I could live with my friends for the spring semester. I lived in the upstairs bedroom with my roommate Rachel. My best friend Emma lived in the room next to us with our roommate Amy, and then 2 downstairs roommates who were rarely home. Now, as soon as I moved in, I started experiencing weird feelings. And she told us a little bit about herself. She said that she's had gifts. And she said, I believe it was given to me through the power of the Holy Spirit, which God.
This is Sydney saying this?
Mhm.
Okay.
Not me.
Well, I thought you were quoting her. So if it was a quote, then when she's saying she, it wouldn't be her.
That's what she said. It wasn't an exact quote. She said to discern between and to see both good and evil spirits. Quote, it used to scare me as a child, but I'm 20 now, and it's not as frightening because I know I've had more power over them than they have over me. End quote. So she said it started with knocks on the wall at night behind their heads. Now, Keep in mind, the only thing on this side of the wall was cement. So she even checked the apartment manager to confirm that it was just cement behind her. So these knocks would keep going, and then footsteps, and things would go missing and show up in random places, and lights would turn off and on their own. And she always felt like this weird, odd feeling or presence in the loft upstairs. Now she said, quote, Rachel and I were in our bed doing homework once, and it was totally quiet. Our window was shut, and the door slammed shut. It scared Rachel and I, and as we opened the door again, it shut on its own. Again. We decided to leave the apartment for a while and try to recover from that. Then one night I woke up around 3 a.m. and I looked across the room at Rachel. She was sitting up in her bed, looking out the door, and I asked her what was wrong, and she told me to look at the door. And on the back of that particular door, we had a full body length mirror. In the mirror was a full shadow outline of a man. I felt an overwhelming need to pray. So Rachel and I said a prayer, and the shadow thankfully vanished. And we were able to fall asleep after that. Now, shortly after this, I was able to find someone to come in and bless our apartment. And after the blessing, the activity completely stopped. Now, the next semester, I left the apartment and moved down the hall because I was still haunted by the memories of that apartment. And that's the end of that first little story.
She left the apartment but moved down the hall?
Yeah, it's more like a...
Does she mean dorm room?
Well, I think it's like an apartment inside like a bigger complex, you know, like individual rooms inside like a big hall.
Okay. Yeah, like a dorm.
Kind of like a dorm, but like anyone can rent it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah. That's pretty spooky. When they say there's a shadow figure in the mirror, because the mirror is a reflection, I wonder where in the reflection they saw the shadow figure.
Yeah, like it was far back, or
was he standing like if someone was standing right in front of a mirror, there were that reflection where it's like taking up the whole mirror, or are you seeing him in the mirror? But that means he's somewhere
in the room.
In the room.
See, I took it as if he was like in the mirror.
Yeah,
like looking out at
like
them.
right at the front.
Mm-hmm. That's how I took it. But I find it interesting. It's like a typical kind of haunting. It's very typical of a haunting. Lights off and on, things going missing.
Who'd you ask about the cement?
The landlord.
Imagine that conversation.
Yeah.
He's like, why?
What's behind that wall?
Why do you want to know? Don't worry.
Like,
or it's so used to haunting stories. He's
just like, it's just cement.
Yeah. So that means it is haunted.
Yeah, you're super haunted.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy if he was just so nonplussed about it.
Get a haunting discount.
I think they charge more.
That makes no sense to me.
I think we charge more because
only if Zach Baggins is staying there.
Never understand.
Which would really be Aaron staying there.
Aaron, I want you to stay here for a week.
You have to take these classes. If you fail, you're kicked off the show.
It's like, I already did college. So her next story, Sydney's next story. It took place the night before Halloween. Halloween Eve, if you will.
But of course.
So she said, quote, me and Emma and our friend Kent and another friend Abram and Kent's friend Rick.
Oh my God, these are white ass names. I mean, which is totally cool.
It takes place in Idaho.
It does. So is BYUI, is that BYU? Is that just, where is BYU?
I think it's Brigham Young University. That's what I think it is.
Is that BYU? Like when someone just says BYU, is that what they're referring to?
I believe so.
All I think about is Zach Wilson.
Is that the quarterback?
That was on the Jets.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I think about now.
I just know it's very Mormon.
Which is fine.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing at all.
Ain't nothing wrong with plural wives.
I don't think they all have plural wives.
No, they don't. It was a joke. Okay. It was funny. We all decided it would be fun to take Kent's older Ford Bronco up the mountain near Idaho Falls. As soon as we get up the mountain, I get that same sick feeling I used to get in my old apartment. I practically begged Kent to turn around, but he would not. We got out of the car for a minute to watch some shooting stars, but I refused to leave Emma's side for 10 minutes we were out of the car. We started to hear weird noises like growling and giggling coming from the bushes. So we hopped in the car really quickly, and Kent started going up the mountain. The further we got, the more sick I would feel. Again, begging Kent to turn around and go home, Kent decided it would be a good idea to go off the beaten path and go ride through the mud puddles. Well, we got stuck, and I started freaking out. I was crying and legitimately thought we were going to die. I could feel an evil presence. It was now 2 a.m. on Halloween day. Everyone was trying to calm me down when we heard the most blood-curdling scream coming from the left of the car. It was close. Rick and Abram jumped out of the car and Kent started the engine. They pushed us out and we took off. We were going so fast down the mountain, but we all felt like something was following us. We discussed what the scream was on the way home. A mountain lion? No, those aren't close to us, and that scream was absolutely human. There was no one else on the mountain that we saw, and since leaving Rexburg, I haven't felt any way like I did there. End story.
I think they heard someone wrestling a bear in the bushes and then getting killed, and they didn't help them. Not that they could have helped them probably if they were aware of it. Like at first they were giggling. Maybe they were having fun.
With the bear?
No, I think the bear came after the
oh, okay.
You know.
It was a real
Are there bears in Idaho? Potato bears?
I think so. It was a real who was the guy that won the Oscar? The guy in Wolf of Wall Street.
Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yeah, it was a real Leonardo DiCaprio situation in The Revenant.
The Revenant.
Yeah. Real situation like that.
I don't like that that's the role that he got the Oscar for.
Oh.
There are a lot of other great films that he's done.
It was more of a gimme. It was more like, here
we got to give it to him.
Yeah.
Which might be a little Myles Garrett.
Did you see the end of it?
No.
The end of that movie, he stares into the camera for like a minute, and he's like, give me an Oscar. He doesn't say it, but he says it in his eyes, yeah.
Please, I almost died making this.
So,
what do you think? That was a joke. I mean, It could be a person legitimately. My honest takeaway is it could have been a person legitimately in a bad situation. But what do you take away from this?
I don't think so. I think they're so isolated, so random on just a random night. I don't think it was a person. And she said she's had this power, this gift for a long time, since a child. And she felt it here. And we said it before, we believe people typically in this situation. I don't know that it seems like it's kind of like invoking, like it feels like a horror movie to me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like he keeps going. She's like, please stop. Out comes the slasher. But thankfully that didn't happen. But it does feel like bad vibes to me, to the point where I don't really know the area. I don't really know Idaho that well. Why would I?
No. Sioux Falls?
It just seems sketchy to me. Although I don't know what else it could. I feel like I don't know why it couldn't be a mountain lion. She said they weren't in the area, but I feel like they're everywhere.
They roam.
And I know when they scream, they sound a lot like women.
That was one of the animals that we used prior in earlier episodes when we would do that kind of research.
It does sound like a woman screaming.
It's not always the case, but I know typically we feel if someone has a haunting experience, if it's in a house, like more ghosts are typically location based. Yeah. If it follows you, it's normally not just a ghost.
Or this could be something like not, good or bad.
You think she had two separate encounters?
I don't think it's the same thing. No, I think it's absolutely different.
Are you thinking more spirit or cryptid?
I think the first one was a ghost in that apartment.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
And the second one, I think, could possibly be in the Fey realm.
Okay.
I mean, the giggling.
So that's why you're believing it, and I'm kind of like, I get it now.
Yeah. It could be mischievous Fey messing with them. The only reason I think
even Fey need taters.
Who doesn't need taters? But the giggling, and then the scream. I think it's just messing with them. I really do. I think it's some kind of force entity.
I don't know any cryptids. I'm so uneducated on Idaho that I don't know what could be out there.
I know it's beautiful. Speaking of bad magic, they're located out of Idaho.
I have no pulse on what this could be.
Okay, so let's just go with like the combined score of this, right? So like,
is that how we're doing this story rate?
Well, we shouldn't do that. No, we should put it toward the end. But I just want you to think about toward the end. We're not going to do the two stories individually. We'll do them together as one submission.
What? Oh, okay. You're saying okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this one will get its own. So maybe the first story will weigh a little bit heavier than the second for you.
Well, I can't. It's not. I can't disprove the second story.
That's
and
true.
Me not knowing what it is doesn't make it less paranormal in my head. I just can't put a finger on it.
I guess that's fair. Let's move on to the next story. This next story comes from Jeremy, and it takes place in Michigan, Portland, Michigan, specifically.
Is it a dog man?
No, it's not a dog man.
Okay.
I think it's actually a much more interesting story than Dog Man. He said, quote, I grew up living across the street from a 1,500 acre public state park. Very cool. The woods were, and still are, very dense in some spots. Depending on where you are in the woods, your visibility could be anywhere from 100 plus feet to 10 feet. The woods were carved in trails for dirt bikes, hiking, pedal bikes, horses, ATVs, anything like that. Now, my friend and I would ride our bikes through these trails so much that to this day, I can still picture it almost every foot in my mind. Now, one day at the beginning of August, right before school started back up, my friend and I were turning off the 2 tracks onto another track. And this was my favorite trail because it would lead directly to the Grand River and had multiple jumps along the way. When we were about a mile down the trail, we noticed another trail veering off to the right, which we had never seen before. Now, keep in mind that this was not a subtle opening in a thick foliage, but a clear, wide open trail. This new trail was wider than the main trail that we were currently on. Now, to not notice it was almost impossible. So naturally, we decided to turn down the new trail and see where it would lead. The trail ended after about 1/4 of a mile into the clearing in the woods. The clearing was circular and about 150 feet diameter. Now, about 20 feet from the edge of the clearing, opposite the trail, was a broken down stone foundation of an old home. This didn't really surprise us because it was not uncommon to stumble upon foundations in the woods. What was weird is the fact that we had never seen this before. We started looking around the foundation to see if we could find anything of value. Being a bit on the destructive side at that age, we started knocking over a few stones off the topmost layer of the foundation. The stone that my friend chose seemed to be a bit loose, so we focused on that one. After prying and kicking, we were able to break it loose even more. My friend gave one last great heave, and the stone, about the size of a basketball, finally broke free. The instant the stone separated from the foundation, we heard a young girl say, "Hey, that's mine." My friend put the stone back in its place as we looked around for the source of the voice. Having not seen anyone, we started back at it again, and my friend picked up the stone again, and we heard the voice say, "I said that's mine." And at this point, we were a bit shocked, and we dropped the stone on the ground. We looked at the hole left by the stone, and there, in the mortar of the foundation, was an old penny from 1904. My friend picked it up, and we started to hear the same voice, only this time, she was giggling. We were able to finally pinpoint the direction of the voice as back towards our bikes. We looked towards our bikes, and next to the place where the trail met the opening, we saw her. She was transparent, pale white and gray, and dressed in clothing that reminded us of Little House on the Prairie. She walked like a normal person, but her footsteps did not disturb any of the dead leaves that were thick in the clearing. In fact, it almost looked like her feet weren't even touching the ground. She was about 5 feet tall, with dark hair pulled into a tight bun. Her apron was whitish, and she wore a matching bonnet. She just walked a straight line, cutting us off from the trail and our bikes. She took one last step and turned her head to the left to look at us. As soon as she looked at us, she disappeared. At that point, we had enough for the day. We started walking slowly towards our bikes, making sure to keep looking around us to try to avoid any other surprises. And when we passed the point where the girl had disappeared, we looked down at the ground, and that's when we saw the door of an old Chevy pickup. We lifted up the door, and we saw a hole about 24 feet across, with no sight to the bottom. We grabbed a rock and tossed it down the hole, and counted to 10 seconds before we heard a faint splash. And as the rock struck the water, we heard the girl's voice again, but coming from the bottom of the hole. And we covered it back up with the door. We got back on our bikes and flew as fast as we could down the trail back to the track road. When we finally got to my friend's house, he realized he put the penny in his pocket without even knowing it. We both had an uneasy feeling about the penny, but when he asked me to take it from him, I told him I would keep an eye on it. I did take the penny, and I put it in an old china cabinet my mother had, which was filled with knickknacks. With all that old stuff in there, she would never notice a single penny. After a few nightmares, we decided to return the penny. We jumped back on our bikes and we headed back toward the unknown trail. And when we got to the point where the trail was supposed to be, there was nothing in the thick brush that would indicate a trail had ever been there at all. We were able to look down the road in the sand and see our tire marks heading toward where the trail should have been, but instead of the tire marks continuing into the woods, they came to a stop near the tree line. Determined to return the penny to the girl, we started to trek into the woods in search of the clearing. We walked all over the area and were never able to find the clearing again. The penny went back into my mom's china cabinet. I believe it's still there today. Eventually, the nightmare stopped, but it took a couple of weeks for that to happen. I have seen too much not to believe in ghosts, and this story is one of the main reasons I believe. End quote. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's so...
They saw this ghost.
Well, it's not even a ghost. This is like a dimensional story. This is like parallel.
You know what? I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, I think it's like a different... I mean, now she would qualify as a ghost, but the whole... It's like the Ruffa Mirage. You know, it's like a location from a different time.
I never even thought about it like that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm surprised. That was like the major...
I was just like, wow, it's a ghost. It's just such a clear...
Well, where do you think everything went?
I didn't think about it. I was like, wow, that ghost took everything with it.
Enjoy the penny. His mom's probably having tons.
She's seen this girl every night in her dreams. She's like, return this slab.
She's like, what do I have to do? It's just this one penny.
Yeah.
And what a friend. Like, yeah, I'll take the haunted penny for you.
Oh, yeah, what a good guy. He sent us another email. He submitted this story, and then, let me find his name. Jeremy sent us an email, like a follow-up email.
How long between the submission and the email?
Well, this came in like June, and then he sent the follow-up in December.
Was it 22?
2022.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to hear the follow-up?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay. He said, gentlemen, so this happened yesterday in December 2022, about a mile and a half from where my original story took place. So that's telling in itself. He said, I'm back in Michigan for the weekend, picking up a car for my family, and I was heading from my in-laws' house to my parents' place. On the way, I decided to swing by the house I grew up in. This is the first house where I lived in when my first story took place. Now, before I get any further, you need a quick bit of background information. I am a disabled veteran, thank you for your service, who suffers from PTSD. And one of the ways my PTSD manifests itself is with night terrors. That being said, last year I had a string of night terrors that took place at a house on the corner of Tower and Okemos, just down the road from my childhood home. The only thing is, this house never existed. In my night terrors, I saw many horrible deaths occur in this house that never existed. Now, fast forward from yesterday, I am cruising down Towner Road, and I'm approaching Okemos Road. I see the Smith farm had expanded all the way to the corner, and he thought, good for them, able to expand like that. And he turns onto Okemos, and then clears the last of the farm structures, and there it stood. The house from his night terrors that had never existed before. Now, being that I lived in Oklahoma, it had been years since I'd been in this neck of the woods, but it only been 5 years. Now, since that is about how long it has been since my folks moved into town, in that time, this house must have been built. This house is exactly as it was in my dreams. Same color, shape, size, cement apron in the front of the garage, everything. This house was not there when my folks moved in. It's relatively new. And as soon as I saw it, all the horrors I had witnessed in my night terrors came flooding back to me. It was very creepy. I almost wonder if there's something going on with that land in that area. It used to belong to Native Americans, and Chief Okemos is buried at the end of the trail that butts up right to the end of the Okemos Road. Thus the name for the road. That's it. Thought it was creepy as hell. Hope you have a great day. Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you for your service.
Isn't that creepy as shit?
That would be very unsettling.
Do you think it's almost like, do you think it's premonition? Or am I reaching?
I don't know.
I don't either. Both those stories are very interesting to me. I don't know, man. It's just, the first story is like the coincidental, like, don't do this. Oh, that happened in 96, by the way. The first story.
I can't believe he stole the penny. I guess you don't want to just throw it out in the woods, but...
I know, right? Like, I would bury it. That's what I would do.
I'd say this especially because he followed up and he took the time to follow up. When you read the first story,
Yeah.
I was getting major no sleep Reddit thread vibes.
Oh. It does sound like unbelievable to the fact like it sounds like too real.
Yeah, it was like such a well done, creative, scary. Like the twist is coming. They come like once they went home and they're like, we're gonna return the penny.
Yeah,
you kind of knew they weren't gonna find it because there's built up with this huge path we've never seen before. Now we've done other dimensional stories, and so we've already discussed that, and both of us kind of are open to that idea.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying I don't believe it, and I'm not saying it's fake. I just want to be very honest and transparent that also it's like August, and he was, and I could be wrong here. I'm not from Michigan, but it's August, and he was like the ghost is walking on the dead leaves. It's like I think a lot of leaves. I mean,
well,
August is early.
A thick forest, though. I don't think leaves had just fallen. I think it's an old dead forest.
Well, it's also a different time. Like once you get the dimensional aspect, it could be any time. It could be fall. It could be winter. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like, so I'm not saying. I'm just. And I'm not even saying I believe that it's not real story. I like if he's going to take the time to follow up. I think that there's some.
I think so too. It's just.
I just want to be honest and be transparent that I was getting those vibes.
We don't often hear stories where ghosts are they're usually like fleeting figures, shadows in the mirror, glimpses of the corner of the eye. This is like a full-on, full-body apparition.
It's not even that for me. The ghost, I'm already past the ghost.
I'm not.
It is, you went to this trail and there's this entrance and there's this area and then you went back and it was gone. Like you're saying literal earth terrain changed in one day. That's what I'm struggling with. The ghost is like, and when we talk about ghosts, the first story, they're not as clear. It's like, don't pick that up. And the kid's like, well, let me pick this up. Don't pick that up. Yeah. And then he's like, well, if she's mad about the stone, I'm sure she won't mind if I take the penny that has monetary value, as little as it may be.
I don't know, man.
I did love hearing the stone that many times. So shout out Dave Matthews Band's favorite song. I don't know. We'll break it down more in the discussion.
Yeah, I think so.
The second story helps the case in that, I don't know. It's like, it feels so gross and dirty to me to ever assume that someone faked a story and sent it in.
Yeah.
And I'm not accusing Jeremy of that.
No.
I'd be curious if anyone else originally had that. Like, cause when when we're like, here's a Reddit story about this encounter we did. And you're like, the Paris Catacombs.
Oh yeah.
It was an amazing story that will stick with me.
Yeah.
And has stuck with me, but it's 100% fake.
Well, yeah.
You know it's fake.
Yeah.
It's fake.
It was absolutely
it's fake.
Yes. It was never a question. Yeah.
Or the I think it was the Okihara.
That was
the
not,
diary one.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes it's when it's so good a narrative and it's not their fault. It's like, it's your experience. If it's a really good experience, who are we to be like?
And this does almost line up with that because it is such an interesting. It feels like a movie a little bit.
It hits the like if I'm writing a horror story, you got to have the twist.
Yeah.
It's that like, what if I went somewhere and then I went back the next day and it was gone? Let me write a story about that. But it's like planted in a place. He goes back and so it seems like there's something unique about him now.
Yeah.
Where it's like he's having nightmares of this place and then he sees it. He goes and wanders down this little path where there's a ghost girl.
Yeah.
And his friend witnessed it,
So that was Jeremy's story. Really interesting to listen to. But let's move on to our next story. This story is from Kendall from North Texas.
North Texas. What's up, Kendall?
Not that Panhandle specifically.
I drove through the Panhandle.
Oh, yeah.
It was some of the darkest skies I've ever seen.
Really?
And I rolled my window down because I was getting a little bit of a glare. And all I smelled was cow poop.
Is that where you're going to
New Mexico?
New Mexico.
But yeah, what are you talking about the hat? Like the little random part that goes on top on the left? Okay, yeah, that's what I drove through.
Yeah. All right, cool. That sounds pretty fun.
I've been there. I might have been there when this happened.
I've not been to Texas.
I might have met Kendall. I didn't.
You went last year, right?
2023.
This happened in 2022.
Still might have met her.
So she said, so this is an interesting...
you like that word today?
I guess so. This is mostly a dream.
Okay.
I mean, mostly I think I mean all a dream.
Okay, cool. I have dreams. I can relate.
Yeah.
I have dreams at nighttime and during the day.
I included this because I think dreams are not something that we can completely discredit. I question them more than anything else, but that's just me.
You're prefacing this like you want to make sure I believe it. So
it's just a good story.
okay.
She said, quote, "This was a one-time event that has yet to be repeated. I don't know if it was just a dream or experience or if there was more validity to it. But I figured you guys would enjoy to hear it at least," which is true. We would. So she just finished the Suffocating Shadow episode. I don't know if you remember that one.
That came out right before I was on vacation in North Carolina.
Yeah.
In, I think, May of 2022. Might have been June.
That sounds correct.
But it was either May or June of 2022.
Yeah. She said, "I've always gotten feelings about this kind of thing, that nature in certain areas, like physical locations and moments in my life. Now, after moving to my current apartment, I've never really felt those kinds of vibes or presence very much at all. Every now and then, my cat would act strange or meow in a way that she never really does while facing a corner in the room, staring at the wall, like cats do. So basically, she never meows and never really has. So it's always kind of alarming when she does this, and it's definitely increased at our current location. I always brush it off as like maybe a mouse in the wall or something catching her attention that I just couldn't sense, which really could be anything. Now, a few months ago, though, I had started to get weird feelings. If I left my door to the hall open, cracked wide, it would feel like something was there. Now, I do this so my cat can free roam in the house, as she doesn't really get into any mischief when I'm not watching her and tends to be very well behaved unless she's ready to get me up in the morning. Now, she said one night, closer to the ramping up of the strange feeling in my apartment, I had a dream. I don't normally remember my dreams, so anytime that I do, it stands out to me. This one stood out because of how strange the sequence of it was and me waking up was. In my dream, I'm lying in my bed and looking at the door, which is slightly ajar. I again had that feeling that there is someone or something just on the other side of it, and this time, a hand reaches out and curls around the door itself. The hand is wearing a white glove, and as I'm watching it silently from my bed, the door starts to creak open. And this is where the definite dream elements come in, because it wasn't a person or just a shadow figure. It was a figure wearing a full black and white jester suit, goofy hat and all. But the thing itself is definitely reminiscent of a shadow figure. No face, no features, just darkness under the outfit in the shape of a human. As it starts to approach me from the door, my dream self says, "No," incredibly forcefully, basically rejecting the fact that it's here at all and blocking any further engagement. After saying no, I wake up, fully aware, not groggy or anything, which is weird for me. I'm also tingling all over, like my body was numb and it woke up with me. I felt like my room was empty. No lingering presence on my door, was very much open, though I can't remember if I closed it to begin with or not. I am very glad my subconscious had the wherewithal to say nope at the possibility of being in a horror movie and just outright rejected any type of presence entering my space, because I haven't had any feelings of strangeness or presence in my apartment since, other that unusual feeling when you're alone in a dark house with an empty space behind you. But that's normal. Fingers crossed that was the end of it for me, and I'm covered for life. My cat does still meow at weird times, and I just ignore it now, for the most part, and tell her to please stop, because it's definitely freaky when it seems like she's looking for someone who's missing, but me and my roommate are both home. The only other time that she really meows is when she's trying to find someone who is usually home that is not, if someone has moved out or you're out of her line of sight. I've had one other dream that reminds me of this time. It was back in 2012 when I was at my parents' property. I haven't listened regularly enough to tell if you've already had an episode on dreams or not, but I hope that this is at least interesting for y'all. End story.
Well, she came out. Okay, you said it was interesting, and I was like using that word a lot.
Yeah.
She used that word, so I take it back. You're allowed to call it interesting.
Thank you. I appreciate it. What a strange story, huh?
Yeah, it reminds me, and this happened before. It was submitted to us before this came out. But in the Fall of the House of Usher, there's like a jester
is there?
character in it. There's a purpose for it. But that's what I was picturing. Well, okay, all right. When she said white glove, I'm like, we're going to get a haunted ass Mickey Mouse coming in here.
You've been watching too much Mickey Mouse.
And then I know that I had the hot thought in my head where it's like, characters that wear gloves are hiding something. It's a sign. It's like a physical symbol that they're hiding something, like Hans.
Oh, is it?
Who took his gloves off when he revealed to Anna.
What? That's crazy.
But I think it was a dream.
I do too.
I think it was a dream, but I think I think she hit the nail on the head. I think her subconscious, she needed to tell it no.
Yeah.
Like it was her versus her. You know, there's like man versus man versus nature, man versus himself. Woman versus nature, woman versus
herself.
Herself. I think it was her versus herself, and I think she shut it down.
I am so much of a people pleaser that I would have absolutely welcomed this thing in, and I would not. I'm just trying to say she's very strong, and she said no.
You would not have. No,
I wouldn't.
You would have got up and tried to break its leg.
I wouldn't have said anything. Probably. I don't know. I admire.
You'd have woke Steph up. You'd have put the arm. You do the arm. Like if you're an action figure and there's like a button on the back of your. I know this about you because I've been there with you. If you had a button like Ghost Hunting Charlie action figure with action packed button, you know, if you push the button on your back, your arm swings out horizontal.
Yeah.
Like perpendicular left, and you would be like. That's what you would do. It'd just be like this deep inhale with the arm swing.
Probably
the rough chuck edition.
There you go.
Comes with a baseball cap, a black hoodie, and a little iPhone 4S to take EVPs.
I'm being called out so hard.
No, that's not. Well, yeah, it's not in a bad way.
No, I know you're 100% right though.
Yeah,
like that's like my move.
And a broken rosary.
Oh yeah, that's actually really creepy though.
It is. I think it was a dream, but I think it's better for us and better for her that it's a dream.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, not better for us, but it's better for everyone that she doesn't have this demonic jester.
I agree. Not in her life, really. Or I wonder if it was like maybe something coming, but she just rejected it. I don't know.
She will always have moments though. Like I was here on Tuesday by myself, and in the studio, and even here alone, I'm like, I need some podcasts playing. I still didn't have the overhead light on. I'd rather get haunted than have those neon lights on.
Yeah.
But, you know, like I think that's normal. I think if you're someone that consumes creepy stuff, it'll happen. Yeah. Cats are going to be cats. You know, my cats meow at stuff.
Cats
Normally it's when they want food, but.
That's true. But yeah, let's move on to the next story. So this is the last story. It takes place in Arizona, and this is from Devin. This happened over the course of 2 years. It said, quote, in late 2013, my mom and my stepdad were on the hunt for a new home. My two stepsisters, and my stepbrother and I all went along with them to each home trying to find a new place to stay for our 8-person family. Jesus Christ.
This is going to be about the haunted wallet.
There was never anybody at all.
It's like every room is going to have bunk beds, or this is a minimum an $800,000 house.
Well,
it'd probably be cheaper to buy 2 houses.
Is this 2012? So this is after the house party crash.
You know, they could probably find one for $400 then. If for 8, I mean, how many rooms do you need? Like 6? 7?
Comfortably?
5? Well, it depends on the ages. I mean, if they're young, the parents obviously have one room.
I don't think they're young.
No offices in this house.
No, not at all. Everyone's got a computer in the room.
8 bedroom, 1 bathroom.
That main pipe is just in a lot of pain.
Ghost is like, these guys are going through it. I'm going to hold off.
House after house, we stumbled across one house that I decided to stick a piece of gum into the arm of the tree to sort of poke fun at whoever ended up at that home. After a couple weeks of searching, I left Arizona to visit my grandfather in Washington. And when I arrived back, my mom brought the news to me that they had been approved for a new home. I was quite surprised to find that the sucker who ended up at the house with the gum in the tree was me. Although they had more news. They had already been moving into this new home for a couple weeks when they came home from church to find the entire house was flipped upside down with all the belongings already in it. Papers everywhere, photos thrown around the house, TV knocked onto the floor, even the couch had been pushed from where it originally had been. Although strange, nothing was stolen. After the cleanup, my mom tried to hang a Bible verse plaque onto the wall outside of the front door, and she dropped it. But amazingly, it hadn't even cracked, so she hung it in place. In the last few days, in kids' church, as a 14-year-old at the time, we had painted rocks with Bible verses on it, and I brought them home to place as decor. I put mine in the rocks in the front of the house. After the incident with the house going awry, we hadn't experienced anything for about a year. But then things started to get strange in the house. One night, my mom and stepdad got dressed up for a date night at about 4 p.m. and they told us to be home around 8. This was something they didn't do very often. So us kids decided to make the best of it, being home alone, and we had a dance party playing today's top hits music from the Dish Network. In order for us to hear the sound, we had to change the receiver to whoever input the TV was in, and I wanted to play my 5th grade science camp video I had watched dozens of times before. I knew each song on the video, and just before Somewhere Over the Rainbow was about to play, the music began playing a pounding noise, and a man yelled, "John, open up!" followed by some old-time music. I turned off my science camp video, trying to decipher where this music was coming from, to find out that somewhere in the receiver had changed by itself back to the Dish Network, and the channel somehow switched to the 40s music channel. We shut off the TV because we were all freaking out. But then we heard our screen door begin to creak open, and through the opaque window beside the front door, I could see a red figure standing there. Everyone retreated to my oldest sibling's bedroom, and I wanted to get something from my room before I joined them, so my sister came with me, and as soon as I entered my bedroom, I started to hear tapping on the window. So we bolted to the living room and huddled back in the living room as we slept and waited for my parents to return. They wouldn't believe the story we told them that occurred that night. The next morning, we found the Bible verse plaque my mom had hung by the door shattered on the ground, and my paint rock that had the paint scratched off of it. White lines scratched across the rock, taking the paint's place. Now, these experiences could very well possibly be debunked as intruders, or my stepdad pulling a prank on us as kids, as he would frequently do. Though these are experiences I can't quite figure out or make sense of. I woke up in the middle of the night on the couch and go to find my mom when I saw a tall black silhouette standing in the hallway. But I flicked on the lights and the figure disappeared. But then in my peripheral vision, I see a small girl-like creature crawling on all fours across the hallway. Now I got really freaked out and I rushed to my room and tried not to think about it, and I eventually drifted off to sleep. Another day, I got out of school and I was the only one home, so I jumped in the shower.
I was the only one home, so I took a shower. Okay. Maybe it really was a bed, one bath.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez.
So I jumped in the shower and I had a habit of locking the door and throwing on some music. Now, while I was scrubbing my hair with shampoo, I heard the door open up to the bathroom. Now, it scared me a little bit, but I just chalked it up to what possibly a family member that got home and unlocked the door and came in to use the restroom. I said, "Hey," but there was no response. So I peeked up my head out of the shower and I saw nobody. So I ignored it until I heard a little girl's voice ask me, "What are you listening to?" Now, completely out of shock, I answered. I said, "Eminem." And then I heard a before I heard the door open back up and shut. I quickly finished up in the shower to see if anyone would come in, but I was alone in the house. We had a swimming pool in our backyard, which only my stepbrother and I used, and the fog light was under the water. And when we swam out in the night, the only light we had was the porch light. We were swimming one night, and we were hanging out by the shallow end where it was more lit. And then we felt something grab our feet. I felt a very light shove behind me, and when I turned around, we both saw a small amount of bubbles coming from the surface. And that's the last time we swam at night. Now, the last encounter I had happened, but not to me. It happened to my mom. She and my stepdad didn't believe everything we told them about the experiences until my mom came into my stepbrother's room to wake him up. And all she got back was a tired moan. She told him, "Come on, you gotta get ready for church." She left the room, went straight to the living room to find my stepbrother ready to go, sitting on the couch talking to my sister. To this day, she has no idea what was in that room. I can still hear that little girl's voice in my head after all these years. I do find it very odd that after living there from 2013 to 2017, those were the only experiences that I've ever encountered, except for now when I'm 23. And luckily, this is the only thing that's happened outside of the house. One thing my wife and I just can't seem to figure out, that we've been renting a home since November of 2021, and my wife received a cameo silhouette as a gift from me and excitedly started to craft items together. One of these items was a custom resin cup from her friend, and one of the final steps to making the cup is to putting it on a roller so the resin can dry evenly along the sides of the cup. And the cup is held down by foam around the arm that spins in the cup. Well, my wife had set it up and went to bed, and the next morning I went in there and the cup was lying in the middle of the floor in the room. I had to pry it off the wooden floor because it had dried, attaching itself to the ground. I can't figure out how the cup could have made it from the hallway across the room and had no fingerprints on the resin because obviously it wasn't dry yet. End of the experience, end of the story, end stories.
I have to say, I think the pool story was scarier than the film Night Swim.
I was thinking about Night Swim.
You know, and this is actually when, I don't know why, when he was talking about in the shower and the little girl,
Yeah.
I was ready for her to say, hey, that's mine. Like, talk about a wild callback.
Yeah.
It's funny because we have two sides with these stories.
Yeah.
Where I was talking about earlier, we got the story from Jeremy, and it was like so well written and creative, and it was so narratively, it was done well that I'm like getting those Reddit vibes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This story, I believe, happened.
There's so many experiences that are just kind of like moments.
It is not written like someone trying to tell you a creative story. It is like, this happened, recall memory.
Yeah.
This happened. Because I'll be honest, there are reactions and responses in that last story that, to me personally, make no sense.
I agree.
But it's not, it doesn't feel like well thought out. It's just like, this thing happened, and then we did this.
Yes.
And then this thing happened, and we did this.
We saw this red figure, and we all ran into my siblings' room, except for me, where I ran into my room.
With my sister. And then we decided to go to the living room and sleep in the living room until...
I did not follow.
So the entire family, all the siblings went in one sister's room.
Yeah.
You wanted to grab something and separate, which you should never do.
Mm-hmm.
And then you didn't even go back to that room with everyone else and sleep. You're like, well, we went to the living room, and then we slept in the living room until my parents got back to the living room.
25 kids went to the one room, and then we decided to branch off.
And we have a very religious family, and the
Bible verse.
The Bible verse plaque broke.
Yeah.
And the stones were scratched off. But maybe my dad was playing a prank on us. Like, okay.
I did not. Yeah.
Just accept that your house is fucking haunted.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, you I believe in being skeptical. This is a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot that happened.
I locked the getting home. I was alone, so I took a shower. I think that's funny.
Something else happened.
I don't have 5 siblings, so I don't know what that's like. And if this is 8 siblings, 6 kids, 2 parents, and they got a pool, whew, in Arizona, let's go.
Well,
but you lock the door, someone comes in, and your first thought is, well, maybe someone else came home and used a key to unlock the bathroom door.
Yeah,
like that's your first thought, and then a ghost asks you a question and you just respond. Like, this ghost doesn't know who Eminem is.
I kind of get that, though.
Slim Shady, bitch.
You just Marshall Mathers? You just respond with like a knee-jerk reaction. I don't know, Eminem? And then it's weird to me the ghost is like, the slums of Detroit, and walks away.
The reactions are so strange.
Yes.
But I think that's real life.
I do too.
You look back at everyone listening to this can look back at a time in your life where something strange happened.
Yeah.
It's if you take the paranormal out, it's the awkward moments.
Yeah.
Someone says, enjoy the movie at a movie theater, and you say, you too.
Yep.
And you're like, why'd I say that makes no sense? He wrote this story without including the haha, that makes no sense.
Yes.
Like, that's what we did.
I agree, though. Like, they're just like knee-jerk reactions. And I actually did follow up with this. I wrote Devin some questions.
Did you say WTF? Why'd you sleep in the living room?
I did have a couple questions. I said,
say the plaque was signed by Jesus?
I said, I asked if you've always been kind of sensitive, or do you consider yourself sensitive? And then I asked, was it just house? Sorry.
Was it just house?
Yes. Was house? Was it just in the house where you really had activity? I know you mentioned the other story with the cup, but was it mostly at the home? Did it feel malevolent or evil at the house? And the fourth question, does your family still live there? Do you ever go back there? And if you do you still feel like it's there? Last question, do you think the thing that moved the cup may have come from the home?
Did you respond?
We'll never get the answers.
Listen, we were set up from the beginning for this to be random and not make sense. Mm-hmm. To put a piece of gum under... I could go to Charlie's house every day. Charlie, I want you to answer this.
Yeah.
If every single day, and you didn't see me, the catch is you don't see me physically going to your house.
Yeah.
If I went to your house every single day of my life and I stuck a new piece of gum under a tree branch.
Yeah.
Am I correct? That I heard you right?
That's correct, yeah.
How many days before you would notice?
Depends. I guess it depends which branch. There's a couple of trees in my house.
He acted like this was this master. Oh, I'm the sucker who. It's a piece of gum on a tree. That'd be like going to a house and rearranging 2 stones in the front. It's like, I mixed them. It's, dude, a piece of gum under a tree branch?
I don't know if I'd ever noticed.
I'm the sucker then. No, you're the sucker because you got the haunted ass house.
That's true. It's super haunted.
It's so much of that did not make sense to me, but that makes it more endearing to me.
I believe it the most, I think. That's why I put it last to me, because
that's a very good question. The hell was the bloody shadow, the bloody ghost?
The red figure.
What a pull.
I thought it was good visuals.
Did they say it was bloody?
No, they said red.
Wow, you took some. I mean, you had 4 stories, technically 5. You took some liberties.
That was the most visual for me, was the red shadow figure.
Not the white gloved hand or the demon jester.
I'm telling you what stood out to me the most.
There's 2 things that are going to stick out for me from the story. It is the trail disappearing, which the disappearing trail would have been a kind of a cool name, and the demon jester.
Well, we have different things that stick out to our minds.
Yeah, minor things that happen. The red figure, we didn't even talk about it.
We did not go back into the story and talk about it. But to me, it's the most striking. I've never heard of a red shadow figure.
I mean, when you said it, I just pictured Dave Grohl from the Pick of Destiny. I just pictured Demon.
Well, I saw a red shadow figure. Like, it's like a shadow figure, but bright red.
Mm.
You're right, though. These are a lot of interesting things. I'm going to keep saying it.
It's really thought-provoking, interesting.
That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
Curious.
But I like that they make no sense. They're just human reactions. But let's talk about more in the discussion. First story.
Yep. It was the apartment dorm.
Yeah.
I feel like we already talked about all these, by the way.
We did. We're just going to sum real quick and just go over what we think. Talk about the believability scale, which is our ranking system, which goes from believable to viable to skeptical to unbelievable
to was this scary?
It was scary, Ranker. Thank you very much. So the first story where she kind of has these she said she has a gift. She has gifts. Sensitivity, which
she had to leave class, the middle class, when English came up. They're like, all right, the 5 of you walk out of here, flip off all your other normal students, and we're going to go read My Side of the Mountain. You're gifted.
It's a good gift. It's a good gift. So she was at college, and she thinks she lived in this place where she saw ghosts, and it was haunted. It was typically haunted.
Yeah, it was the normal...
Conventionally haunted.
Conventional is a good way of putting it. Yeah, like...
Lights going off and on, things going missing.
Knocking sounds.
Shadow figures. The
figure in the mirror, very creepy.
Yes, very creepy, but also gone after she left.
So then the second part is where it's almost like she should have stopped when she was ahead. Not really. I mean, it's her experience, and it's still creepy. So she's outside looking at shooting stars, which is dope. I love that. She's getting some bonus points.
It's not like it's unbelievable. I think it's more believable that it was an animal, and she was nervous.
The giggling, the
or Faye.
Bobcat, or Faye.
What do you think it is? What's giggling in the woods?
A person.
It's a person?
Yeah, people out there.
I think it's more likely it was a forest spirit.
People having a good time out in the bushes.
I don't think they're having that good of a time.
Little bear role playing, growling.
I guess where do you combine both stories together? Where do you put it?
I'm gonna. The first one weighs out a ton. I think the first story. I believe the first story happened.
I do too.
I can't say whether or not the second part is paranormal or not. It was strange.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna drop it because, and I don't want the first story is so believable to me that I'm just gonna go believable.
I'm actually going to go viable just for the second story because we don't know what was going on in the woods.
Yeah, you said to weigh them together, and I'm not. I'm going believable because I think the first part really did happen.
I think so too. I do too. But I wonder. There's so many things to question in the second story, and that's why I'm going viable.
Okay, so what's the second story? Is that Jeremy?
Yes, it is. Okay. Jeremy with the girl in the woods.
Let me tell you, I think this is my favorite story.
Me too. It's
my favorite story we heard today for whatever that's worth.
To me, it's so memorable. And what are the implications of the giant hole with the girl's voice in the bottom after they threw the rock?
That's another thing. They counted to 10,
Yeah.
That's pretty far.
It's the Devil's Hole.
The Idaho hole.
It's super.
Idaho.
It was not. It was in Michigan.
Damn it.
No.
Idaho just sounds so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's either, for me, it's either dimensional parallel universe shift, or I don't know.
I didn't even think about that when I read it. I didn't think about that till you said it.
If you think about the Rough and Mirage and that house that we covered, it's an old episode. If you don't know what we're talking about, go listen to it. I'll give you a hint. It's a house that appears and then disappears.
Nailed it.
But maybe this area, because he mentioned the area.
It's very old.
Yeah.
Ancient.
So maybe there's just something. Well, I mean, it's no older than any other land, technically. But he mentioned like Native Americans and things like that. But maybe there's just something special and unique there where it is like, it's, when they say there's like the hot spots and the vortexes and things like that, ley lines. Maybe this is just something where it's just more of a fertile ground for paranormal activity, where the rift between one dimension and the other is a little bit lighter.
Maybe there's a reason why not a lot of people have built homes here, because things happen.
Yeah, they're like, this is really weird. Let's just slap state park on it.
Yeah. Well, there's the theory that, Roosevelt made all the national parks be to protect the things that live in the woods.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I would love to know the perspective of his friend that he was with, too.
I do, too. I would like that, too.
Also, keeping the penny was such a dumb idea.
It's so stupid.
They were young and they were young.
I don't think they realized they put it in their pocket, or the ghost put it in their pocket. They got reverse pickpocketed.
I would trip out of my mind if this happened to me. Like if I went somewhere and it was just completely not there anymore, and it was like, what, a day later? They went
couple nightmares, so a couple days later.
Okay. I would be tripping. Like, yeah. I don't know.
I personally go believable on this one.
And then the second part is the house.
The second part's the house where he had the night terrors that was not there before.
I'm going to go viable.
Fair. And the third story, the dream.
Unbelievable. Love it. Love it. Great image. The, demon jester would have been an awesome name for a podcast episode. But I think it was a dream. I think her subconscious, I think she was afraid. She's feeling stuff, and her subconscious was just like, no longer. You shall not pass.
I think so too. I also go unbelievable. I think she's got a strong will, but I do not think it was a real paranormal entity. I think it was more her own fear. I think so.
And dreams are powerful in that way. Like if I dream about a person, I think about them the whole day, like a friend, I'm like, I wonder what they're up to. And then, you Facebook creep or something. Yeah. Like dreams do have that type of power where they can be long lasting. I know you don't know this. You don't dream.
Jesus Christ.
You don't.
I don't really know.
So I think it was just a very creepy, vivid dream, and they happen.
I agree with that.
I've been in a funk for multiple days over very bad dreams.
I remember your dreams, because you tell me about your dreams in such detail. I remember the one about the asteroid.
That's the one I was just referring to.
I remember the one about the horror movie, where you didn't realize the horror movie, and then you realized, I know more of your dreams than mine.
Yeah.
So anyway, unbelievable.
Yeah.
So the last one,
I'm going believable. Like this is not.
You have to.
It's under the circumstances that I don't think it's a creative work of fiction.
No.
And I don't. And normally we don't even consider that. Normally we don't really even think about people just faking stories. I think it's in my mind because
it's a hard comparison because of the Jeremy story.
But this is also like. It's like you got to cut through
years of living there, right?
It's like this is like crab legs for me. It's like the meat is like the red guy, the shadow figure, but you got to get through the I locked the door and it opened and that's okay. And everyone in my sister's room, but I need to get something and I slept in the living room. It's like there's like these weird details and the gum under the tree. Yeah. It's like these are so weird, but then you crack it open and then you're like shadow figure, knocking, red figure, like that's like it's like
these Bible verse cracking.
The Bible verse cracking, which, well, okay, so I go believable. Where are you at, and what do you think this is? Do you think ghost or worse?
I think this is. I go believable as well. It's just the human reactions are so real in this. Like, I don't think there's any other reason.
Humans don't make sense, and neither does this story.
Absolutely. I don't think it's worse than a ghost.
So even with all the religious stuff, like scratching off, you think it's just malevolent
I think it's a malevolent ghost. I think it's an angry ghost that lives in this very expensive house that has 8 people in it.
And a pool.
And a pool.
With a shallow one.
That's right.
And a deeper. which means in ground.
That's right. But absolutely, that's my point. I think this is
That's your point.
That's
The
my
pool.
point. The pool. It's just I think it's a ghost because I don't think it followed Devin. I don't think it's followed anybody. I don't know if it's still there. You didn't answer my questions, but I don't believe it's left the home or if they've had any more experiences. And also, it took a while to emerge. Right? It didn't happen for the first year.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if someone did something. And there's a lot of people in here that could up and cause something to happen.
That's true. I wonder. Yeah.
By the way, my sister practices. Such
any one of them could have been like, let's play with the Ouija board.
I'm not gonna lie. I was waiting for the connection to be the ghosts were upset that I put the piece of gum
under the tree.
Yeah, like when he was like things started getting misplaced and everything was upside down and the thing, which is another very scary conventional. I was waiting to see the gum, like the piece of gum was inside the house. Yeah, it's like don't disrupt the property.
Well,
that would be unsettling.
Do you think that was the ghost that did the house, or do you think it was
the movers? Or
I think people.
Oh, you think people could? I don't think so.
Yeah, because there's nothing was stolen.
Yeah, I don't. Or at least nothing they knew of.
I don't know. People are crazy. I don't know. I don't necessarily believe that was just ghosts. I don't know.
I didn't look at it through that lens. I'll be honest.
Okay.
I would almost have to listen back to the story and start imagining it from being messed with neighbors. But I feel like there'd be more details of like
I do too
robberies in the area or people that acted, like the friend group. But he went to like stepdad pranking us.
That
is so weird.
He wrote that in there. I was like, what? What?
It's like the conclusions this dude comes to.
Yeah.
I appreciate that he's trying to find other solutions or other explanations.
But you're in a fucking haunted house.
Yes.
I would like to hear back from Devin. I hope we do. So that was the Bloody Shadow listener submissions. Or I guess if you're feeling weird, demonic jester, whatever you feel like.
The demonic jester. What was it? The Lost Trail? Not Lost Trail. What was
the
that?
Lost? Yeah, the Lost Trail.
That's not what I said. The disappearing trail or something like that. I said it earlier in the episode.
Vanishing path.
Yeah.
So I love listener submissions. I love that people send stories to us and we can talk about them and share them with everybody else. I feel bad that they happen to people, but also I'm glad that they have a place to submit them and people can talk about them.
It's cool because when you hear all these stories, you're not alone. And I'm not speaking for me and Charlie here. Like we've had our own experiences. We've talked about them in depth on the podcast and elsewhere. But for people who live in haunted houses, it's just like these stories are further proof that you're not alone, that other people are going through things. And for skeptics, I mean, I more so than you, I lean skeptical on certain things. But I mean, we're at a point now where it's like a conventional haunting or something. It's like we hear so many of these stories. It's just a cool way to see that if you don't believe in hauntings, listen to all these stories. Like these are not big time Wikipedia stories. Like these are normal everyday people that are experiencing creepy stuff.
That's true. I always talk about this, like for like the big encounters, like it's like the 6 degrees of handshakes. Like you're 6 handshakes away from that story, the big stories. But for these, this is just like
one fist bump.
And that's us.
One email.
It's very cool. I love that we get to talk about these stories. And I love that you guys send them in. I appreciate it. And, we just appreciate you listening to the show.
And if you want to show your appreciation for listening to the show, if you're listening on Apple, you can leave a 5-star review. We appreciate that very much. And if you're listening on Spotify, finally, I guess I can't speak for everyone, but I can speak for everyone in this room. We finally can see the comments, respond to the comments, post the comments on Spotify. You can literally comment on every single episode of Believing the Bizarre, which is currently 226. You started odd. I don't know how you ended up with even. I think it's like some Baker Mayfield stuff. But Charlie, why don't you tell us some comments that we received on our last episode about the possession of Clara?
We got quite a few. Amelia said, this by far is top 3 favorite episodes. Appreciate that a lot.
Yes. Anytime anyone says an episode's a favorite, it just makes me so happy.
It was a really interesting story.
Very interesting. It was curious.
Oh, I keep saying it, don't I?
Yeah.
It was a fascinating story.
It was a narrative.
Yeah.
That's what I like. Beginning to end, it was one narrative.
May said, usually I avoid the subject of possession because it is, in fact, just an extra level of creepy, LOL. But I'm glad I listened to the episode. Super well covered. I also agree with that. And then last one from Duranchi said, man, levitating like that, bad juju.
Bad juju. So you can leave your comment on this episode and every other episode. We see him. And now it's cool. It's extra level of cool because we can reply now. Before it was just posting them or not posting them if you said some mean shit. But now we can actually comment, reply. It's awesome. It's another level of communication with y'all, which is dope.
And if you have caught up on the episode, you're all the way up here. You're like, final episode. What can I do now? I've got more vegetables to chop. You could always join the Patreon. There's so much bonus content going on over there. Drop 5 to 8 things a month. Comfortably do that.
Comfortably. Relaxed.
It's a lot of fun.
In our sleep.
And I really hope you enjoyed the interview we just did with Lindsay Cummins, Queen of Bad Magic. Incredible interview. Again.
Yeah, go check that out if you haven't. We think you'll enjoy it. Especially, like we said, if you like Scared to Death podcast. So thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. I'm going to go buy some double bubble gum and I'm going to find out how much Charlie pays attention in his house. But thank you guys. As always, I'm Tyler.
I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre.
The podcast is bizarre as you are.